This is the fastest and easiest tutorial of the Buyer Representation and Broker Compensation Agreement, Form BRBC, revised June of 2025. Now, this is a 14-page bundle, but really, there's only one page you have to worry about. One page accounts for 95% of this thing, and so that's why I'm going to show you the fastest and easiest way to fill it out. Now, that one page is page 3 of 14 of this bundle. And keep in mind, before it is this disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship, just be sure to fill this out too. I mean, it's your information and your buyer's signs. It's required by law. And so is the BRBC. It's required no later than when you draft an offer, but as soon as practicable. That's the law. All right. We start by putting the date that we're preparing this form, the name of the buyer, and of course the name of our brokerage. Representation period, very important you have both. If you leave one or both blank, this form can be voided or it can be unenforceable. So we want to make sure we put the starting date and the ending date, and they tell you not to exceed 3 months. That's the max this term can be. You know, I used to be a huge advocate of exclusive. Now, not so much. I think either is fine, quite frankly. All right, property type. I really wish this was drafted differently. They can't help themselves but to make things more complex. But they should say all real property with the following exceptions. And then someone would write in an exception if there is one, which would be very rare. But by default, this property type is for single family or condos. If your client is looking, maybe even a 1% chance that they're looking at multifamily, check this box. Check the boxes that apply. And they have this space here for the following specified property. Oh, by the way, don't check this box. This excludes SFRs. I don't know why they have this in here. They should take it out. But don't check that box. Leave it by default or add on something. And then down here, they have this if you want to write in maybe just one property. Maybe you're doing this BRBC for just one single property, write it in here, okay? Location. You want the widest geographic scope, but not too wide, because if you make it too wide, if you do something silly like write the entire state of California, well, there's no way that you could properly service the entire state. So a buyer could render this agreement null and void on account of it being unreasonable. So don't write in something silly like 5 counties. Write in a wide scope to protect your geographic location, but not so wide that you could never actually perform your duties. I mean, don't put Southern California and Northern California. Additional subscription, just skip it. Additional buyer preferences, this is silly, just skip it. Is there a property that's excluded? Here's why this isn't silly. What if the buyer was just working with another agent and that agent has a claim on a particular property? Put whatever that exclusion is right here. If that doesn't pertain to you, skip it. Now the most important part, amount of compensation. Put in the highest number that you can. Why? Because you can always modify and reduce this number, but you can't increase it. Once you put a low number here, you've set a ceiling, you've set a cap. That's it. Okay, it even says brokers shall not receive any amount in excess of the amount on paragraph 2E1 right here. All right, so you want to put in a reasonable number, ideally 3%. And like I said, you can always modify down with an MT-BR form and change it after an offer has been accepted if the offer is for less. By the way, I'm doing a separate updated RPA purchase agreement video. I'll put a link in the description. Be sure to watch that as well. Now, that's really all you need to do here is put in a reasonable number, ideally 3%. If you have a question, leave a comment. Now, if the buyer gets weird on you, explain this section to them, okay? And say, look, customarily, typically speaking, the seller will pay your obligation on your behalf. If broker receives compensation from seller or others for broker's representation of buyer, that's what this is here, the amount shall be credited against the buyer's obligation to pay. So you can alleviate the buyer's concern by saying, look, anything I'm paid from anyone else is credited toward your obligation. That's it. And it even says brokers shall not receive any amount in excess of the amount specified here. That's why if they say, well, just put 1% or put $500 or some nominal phony baloney amount, you cannot do that. You're shooting yourself in the foot. It says right here that anything you put here is the bar, the limit, the max you can get because of this provision here. Everyone knows it in the industry. That's why when you get an offer accepted, everyone wants to see your BRBC. Escrow is going to ask for a copy of this. Your broker needs a copy of this. Everything depends on you doing this section right. That's why I'm telling you, put a reasonable number here. And if your offer is accepted for a lower commission, you can clean this up with the BRBC to let the buyer off the hook. There is zero excuse to put a low number here. Continuation period, put 90 days. That means if you show a property and this agreement expires or is canceled, you're protected for 90 days that you can represent the buyer on that property in which you did work on. And then it tells you right here about non-exclusive or exclusive, and it's a cancellation period. All right. And it's non-exclusive cancellation happens right away. And if it's exclusive, there's a 30-day delay. And you can also change this here. All right, and time for buyer to give you, skip. We're done. We're already done. That's it. I've just shown you how to do this whole thing, okay? It says, by the way, one other very important factor. See this G2, this line G2? Never, ever, ever check this box. Never. Don't do it, all right? It's a whole nother topic. If a buyer cannot afford to at least promise to pay you, you're not in business, people. You cannot take on a buyer that cannot even make the gesture. The seller's going to pick up the tab 99% of the time, right? But if a buyer can't even make the gesture that they're willing to pay if the seller doesn't, which is highly, highly unlikely, you can't help them. You can't work for free, people. Seriously, you have to set a boundary. And if you can only find a buyer that is, if the only buyer you find isn't willing to even make that commitment, you're not in business. I hate to break it to you, but you're not in business. So never, ever check G2. Other terms, do you need them? Write them in if you need to. That's it. We're done. Buyer's going to initial. Now, what's all this other stuff about? Disclaimers, disclosures. This whole matrix up here, you see how it says paragraph number? Well, it's telling you the longer version corresponding text. So you can read it. This is like a reference. It's a backup of all the additional supplementary information related to all the fields we just filled out on that single page. But we're not going to read it here. That would be extremely boring. We're just going to go down here, page 7 of 14, where your buyer's going to sign and you're going to sign by, you don't need your broker to sign. You just need to be the agent on this, and then you sign. That's it. You as the agent, that's it, and the buyer, and you're done. You don't even need to have your broker sign this. Just you, the salesperson. And all this is disclaimer. You can read through it. Maybe you're having trouble sleeping at night. Go ahead and just print one of these out, put on your nightstand, and I assure you, you'll fall asleep very quickly. All right, that's it. 14 pages condensed down to 1. You now know how to do a BRBC. Leave a comment with any questions. Thank you for watching.